So, what we're going to be talking about today is how I can infer or figure out, the word infer means figure out, when and why characters might change over time. So, have you ever read a fiction or fake book where a character starts out one way and changes as time goes on? Raise your hand if that has happened to you. My friends at home, raise your hand if you have read a book where the character changes over time. Has anyone ever read a book where you hated the character at first, but then by the end of the story you absolutely loved them? Yeah, movies can be like that as well. Or vice versa. You started out really liking them, and by the end, you did not. So, that's what we're going to be discussing today and tomorrow, how a character changes over time. And we're going to use evidence from the text to infer or figure out how the character changes. Aiden, if you don't continue to pay attention, you will be working at recess. So please put it away or it is mine. Understood? All right. So we have our text, Molly and the New Neighbors. And my friends at school, let's just put RF right next to the title. That stands for realistic fiction. This is fake. This story is not real. But everything that happens in this story could happen in real life. Okay? So this is realistic fiction. I'm going to start reading. My friends at home, I want you to follow along with me on the screen. My friends at school, I want you to follow along on your paper. And we're going to be looking at static characters, which is a character that stays the same the entire time. And then dynamic characters, which is a character that changes over time. So be thinking about who you think might be static. Static means stays the same. Or dynamic, which means change. Okay? That's what you're going to be thinking about as I'm reading. Let's begin. I'm on paragraph 1. Look, Molly pressed her face on the window. The new neighbors are moving in. She turned to her mom. Mum is mom, okay? In England or London, they say mom. So I don't know where this story takes place, but M-U-M is the same thing as mom. So if you want to write mom above that, that's totally fine. Can I help them? No, her mom said firmly. Let's not get off to a bad start. Molly snorted. Can everybody snort for me? I know, it might be hard in your mask. We know what snorted means. But I want to help, she said. Everyone always tells me to help. You know, help the neighbor, like it says in the Bible, she added vaguely, recalling a lesson from Sunday school. I need you to highlight the word vaguely. There are a good amount of words in here that are challenging. So I'm going to have to give you some of those words. So vaguely means barely. I'm not going to be able to highlight. I'm just going to have to underline. So vaguely means barely. So if you are at school, please highlight and write the word barely above it. You are doing this with me. She added vaguely, recalling a lesson from Sunday school. It's love thy neighbor, Molly, her father corrected. Leave the neighbors alone. I suspect that Mr. and Mrs. de Tocqueville, can you guys say that with me? De Tocqueville, that's a last name, isn't it? Want their furniture to survive the journey from the driveway to the house. He knew all too well that Molly's good intentions could have disastrous consequences. So I want you to highlight disastrous consequences. So she has good intentions, which means she means well, but sometimes it ends up disastrous. Disastrous means what? Very, very bad. So I'm just going to write very bad. And we know what a consequence is. Something that happens to you. Usually a consequence is when you do something that you're not supposed to do, and then you have a consequence for it, right? You don't do your homework, your consequence is you have to do it at recess, or you get a 0. All right, I am on paragraph 4. Shaking her head at the injustice, Molly wandered outside into the garden. So she's shaking her head. What do you think? There we go. At the injustice. She doesn't think it's fair, does she? So we're going to just underline or highlight injustice, and that means unfair. Because Alana, what does she want to do? Who does she want to help? Yeah, she wants to help the neighbors, but her parents are like, no, just give them time to move in. So she thinks that's totally unfair. And then Liliana, where does she end up going after she's told she can't? She wanders into the what?
Garden.
Wanders into the garden. Very good. All right, let's keep on reading. Molly, what are you doing? Her father called out from the kitchen window. Molly thought for a few seconds. Gardening, she replied. I'm doing some gardening. Do we think she's really doing gardening?
No.
I don't think she is either. Yeah. Gardening for Molly was a very vigorous activity. Ooh, that is a great 4th grade word. Vigorous.
This is vigorous.
Vigorous means, who remembers what laborious means from our Herculean task? What's labor mean? Lily?
A task that he has to do.
It's work, yeah. So vigorous means hard work. Usually it's like when you're doing physical activity. So we're just going to say hard work. It's not easy. It's a vigorous task. It was an opportunity. It was not an opportunity for quiet relaxation and contemplation. She saw it as a chance to make a difference. She began some weeding. Contemplation means deep thought. So this is not a time when she's relaxing and deep in thought. This is a time when she's working hard and she starts weeding. Raise your hand if you've ever helped your mom or dad do some of the weeding in the yard. I see Natalie, Alexis, Liliana, Ryan at home. Anyone else at home? Henry, is it hard work to weed and do landscaping, to work out in the yard? Or is it relaxing? What do you think, Henry? Do you think doing weeding in the garden is relaxing or hard work, Henry? I think I lost you. It's pretty hard, right? It's not a time where you can calm down. Yes. All right. So she began to do some weeding. We're going to pause here. My friends at school, I need you to go to the last page and actually just rip off the last page. Rip off the last page with the chart. So you're going to go like this so that you have them side by side. Okay? My friends at home, I want you to be starting with this chart. I just want you to write Molly, and then I want you to make 2 columns. One is going to be for the character trait, and one is going to be for the evidence. You don't have to write everything I have. You just need to write character trait and evidence. And make sure that you have Molly.
They keep moving.
Yes, please make sure, it could be internet. Make sure you are staying on the entire reading lesson. Okay, so our first character.
Do you want us to write Molly in a character trait?
Yep, that's what I've circled. Do you see that I've circled it in green?
Yeah.
And then you just need 4 boxes for character trait and 4 boxes for evidence. Yep, we're doing Molly right now. And remember, this is online as well. So, a character trait for Molly so far. She says, but I want to help. She wants to help the Tocquevilles. So what is a trait that you would give her? It almost says it. I want you to use your evidence to make your inference. What is a trait that you would give her? Lily, your hand shot up.
Thoughtful. Because she wants to help her.
Thoughtful and helpful. Excellent. Let's put that down. I'm going to do Molly in green. She is helpful. I also think thoughtful would definitely work. And in the text, it says, but I want to help. It says it right there. So I'm just going to put my quotations. But I want to help. And remember, she's saying that to her mom. So I inferred or figured out that Molly seems very helpful.
Do you want us to highlight that?
We're going to go back and do it in the text in just a minute. If you see it and you can get ahead of the game and highlight it. Yeah. It's in the second paragraph. I just don't want to move my screen. Yes, Ryan?
We have this sheet.
Okay, Ryan, remember, this sheet is on Google Classroom. You do not have it with you, but it is on Google Classroom for you. Right now, you are making the chart in your reader's notebook or on a piece of paper, okay? Okay. So, give me a thumb up, my friends at home, if I can go back to the passage. Got this down on your chart. Good. I see lots of thumbs up. Amaya, you've got your sheet. Are you writing this down, Amaya? I'm going to be checking everyone's notebook in just a minute to make sure they are writing this down with me. So if you are not, you need to start. Okay. I am going back to our passage, and we're going to just highlight our evidence. Okay. So, she says, but I want to help. So let's all highlight that, my friends at school. She wants to help. That's our evidence from the text. Please highlight that in paragraph 2.
Already did.
Already did. Love it. And that is our first inference about Molly. Let's keep on reading about her. She's now in the garden, doing some weeding, some vigorous work. So I'm on paragraph number 5. Molly never remembered which were plants and which were weeds. To be safe, she decided to remove all those plants that looked as though they might be weeds. After all, as her parents often told her, a job is not worth doing unless you did it well. So she's removing all the plants that she thinks look like weeds, right? I'm afraid that she might remove some that are actually plants, but we'll see. Soon a huge pile of wilting plants had built up by the flower bed. You guys, can you show me if you were wilting? If you're wilting, you're what? Kind of like you're melting. Everybody at home, show me like you look like you're wilting. You're melting, right? Wilting, if a flower is wilting, it probably needs water or it is dying. Good. Molly admired her work with a smile. She was sure there were no weeds left. All 3 of the surviving plants were definitely flowers. So she only had 3 plants left. I'm a little nervous for her. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to highlight the next evidence about Molly. And I want you to think, okay, what can I infer or figure out about her as a character. And I want you to highlight with me. I'm going to have to do it from my computer because it's a lot easier. I am in paragraph 4, and it says, she began with some weeding. And I'm also going to highlight it was a very vigorous activity. Yep. Gardening was a very vigorous activity. Highlight both of those. Vigorous.
Oh, we already have that.
The whole thing. So gardening for Molly was a very vigorous activity. And then we're going to read the beginning of the next page. There's one more piece of evidence that goes with this, and then we're going to make an inference about Molly.
Okay.
So I'm going to flip to the next page, my friends at school. Please do that. Flip to your next page. So it says, what's next? The neighbor's garden had a pond full of frogs and insects.
Ooh. Highlight that.
Highlight that as well in paragraph number 7. She said, what's next? I'm on the next page, page 2. And then I'm going to give you the evidence that we just highlighted, and I want you to try to come up with her traits, okay? Put a thumb up if you've highlighted this. Good. All right, my friends at home, you're back on your chart. So I'm going to write down the evidence for you. So we know that gardening is a very vigorous activity, right? She said it's lots of work for her. So I'm going to write, and you are writing this with me. Gardening, vigorous activity. And I'm also going to write, she also says, that's a Y by the way, what's next? That's what she said at the top of paragraph 7. She said, what's next? Please jot that down. My friends at home, I love how Ryan's jotting this down. So is Alana, Akaya, I see you working. Bryson, are you there? All right, Bryson, you should be jotting this down. Oh, you're jotting this down with me. Do you have your evidence for your second trait? Good, Samuel, Juan, you got your evidence down? Good, Jordan, I love it. You guys are doing the hard work now. Addison, Talia, nice work. Axel, make sure you're getting this down. Good. Ava, I do need to see your camera on if it is working. Amaya, I do need to see you. Amaya, please stay on at the end of the session. So as you're writing, I want you to be thinking, okay, what do these two pieces of evidence tell us about Molly? We already know that she's helpful. We're not going to say that again. What's something else? We know that first she wanted to help the neighbor. Then she wanted to go do some weeding and gardening. Now she's like, okay, what's next? I've got the neighbor's pond. I can figure out the frogs and the insects. What would you say about her? What would you say about her? Raise your hand if you can give me a trait based on she's going here, she's going there, she's got very vigorous activity. I want to hear from a friend from home and a friend from school. So let's hear. Alexis, what would you say?
Hardworking.
I like hardworking. Good. Someone at home, raise your hand. What is a trait that you would give Molly for all of that? Addison. Addison, take yourself off mute. Addison, can you hear me? All right, calling on someone else from home. Give me a trait. What would you say for her? Samuel.
I'd say she is eager.
I love that. We've got eager, and Alexis said hardworking. Natalie, give me one more.
I said generous because.
Ah, very generous, which is a synonym to helpful. Good. I'm going to put those together. Do you think she's very energetic? Does she have a lot of energy? She seems like she doesn't stop. So we're going to say intergetic.
Oh, this I wrote down everybody.
That's fine. You can add it to your list. Very good. And do you notice how my trait matches with my evidence? It's not random, it makes sense, right? Put your hand on your head once you have this written down, my friends at school and my friends at home, so I know that I can go to the next page. My friends at home, once you have this written down, please put your hand on your head as a signal for me. Okay. All right, back to the passage we go. I'm on page 2, the top of paragraph number 7. So far we know that Molly is helpful and energetic. Mr. Jacobson, the previous owner, had been happy to let Molly play in it. So she likes to play in the pond with the frogs. He never complained about her making noise. He listened to her impassioned stories. Ooh, that's a big one. Let's highlight that. Impassioned stories. What is the main word in impassioned? What is that root word? Passion. Yeah. So all that means is she has some very passionate, interesting stories. So if you want to highlight that and then just box the word passion, that's the root word in impassioned. You see how I use my context clues to figure that out? So he listened to her impassioned stories for hours, only interrupting interrupting to adjust the volume of his hearing aid. Okay. Paragraph 8. Perhaps, Molly thought, the new neighbors would let me play there as well. She hoisted herself up and peered over the fence. Show me you hoisting yourself up. Good. We're my friends at school. We're standing up. We're hoisting. You're jumping up. Good. My friends at home. I love that. Akaya, I love how you just did that with us. So she's peering over the fence. A little nosy too, don't you think? That's another trait I would think for her. Number 9. Mr. and Mrs. de Tocqueville were settling into their gardening chairs. Mr. de Tocqueville was tall and thin, his white hair and beard neatly trimmed. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, he looked lost in thought. His wife was severe and unsmiling, with every hair in place. She reminded Molly of a bird with her beady eyes alert above her sharp nose. I want you to highlight severe and unsmiling. Does that seem like a positive, nice look?
No.
No. Yeah, that means unfriendly and strict. So I'm just going to write unfriendly. So she looks...
Some people just look like that.
Right, and Justin said some people just have that kind of the look on their face. Unfriendly and strict. Okay. Paragraph 10. Well, Mr. de Tocqueville said in a high voice, moving is the most ghastly experience, which means exhausting. Thank goodness it's over and we can relax. His just opening her mouth to agree when Molly spoke first. And we are going to we now have been introduced to our other two characters, and we're kind of putting them as one, Mr. and Mrs. de Tocqueville. And we can infer something about their external look, right? So let's go back to our chart. We're going to go to the bottom now, and my friends at home, you need to make sure you now have another chart that looks just like this for Mr. and Mrs. de Tocqueville. All you need to write is their name, which is here, and then you need to have character traits and evidence. And then you've got your 4 boxes. So my friends at home, on either the back or the bottom half, you are making a new chart for Mr. and Mrs. de Tocqueville. My friends at school, you see your chart, correct? So we know how they look. My friends at home, while my friends at school, while my friends at home are making the chart, I want you to point or highlight what they say in the text about their looks. What did they say about their looks? Especially Mr. de Tocqueville. Can you find it and can you highlight it for me right now?
Mr. or Miss?
Well, you can do both, yeah, but they definitely told us looks about Mr. and then they did give us some about Miss. So I would do both, yeah, good question.
Can we pick the one that we highlighted?
We're gonna do that together, yeah. You guys are just kind of have a head start.
So we highlight everything that they told us about.
About their looks, whatever they said about their looks, I just want you to highlight.
Hey, tall, but thin.
And I'm gonna use blue for our de Tocqueville.
What about
Oh, I don't know if that was supposed to happen. So Aiden, what do we know about Mr. de Tocqueville? What's he look like? He's got what?
Mr. Tocqueville was tall, thin, his white hair and beard neatly trimmed behind his ripped gold glasses.
Excellent. Good. I love how you highlighted that whole sentence. Tall, thin, he has white hair, a beard that's neatly trimmed. Every hair is in place. So you're going to write this down with me. My friends at home, you are writing this down in the evidence portion of your de Tocqueville chart. We've got 5 minutes left, my friends. 5 minutes. So we know, do you think Mr. de Tocqueville is young or older?
Young.
Young, he's got white hair.
Older.
Older, yeah. White hair and a beard. So he is, and I'm not going to say old. I'm going to say older.
Oh.
Because that's a little nicer, right?
Oh.
So that is a character trait that I've inferred. They didn't come out and say Mr. de Tocqueville is older, but you inferred or figured out based on his white hair and his beard that he is an older man. And also, his beard is very nicely trimmed. He probably cuts it and trims it a lot. It looks very clean. It's not straggly. It's not long and unpolished. So I'm actually going to give you another word for Mr. de Tocqueville. So let's put a slash. We'll say and. Refined.
What was the first one? I was there.
What was it? Go ahead, Alden. What'd he say?
And he trimmed his beard, every hair in place, so his beard would look good. So that it's kind of making his beard tiny.
which was one of your, wasn't that one of your vocab words last week?
Yeah.
Good, nice
Yeah, yes,
connection, Alden. I love it. And yes, refined is tidy or neat. That's like a middle school word. So we're gonna say refined. And you can put in parentheses, you can put tidy, or you can put neat. And I don't mean neat like, oh, that's so cool. I mean neat like clean. Yes, Lily. Brayden, you got all this down? Good.
What was the two character traits again? I forgot what you said.
Older and refined. We've got it right here. So we know he's older based on the white hair. And then we know that he's refined or neat because he's got the beard that's very trimmed and clean cut. Well done, my friend. Okay. You've got about 30 seconds to get this down, and then I've got to move on.
Miss Brisson, I read something different from
Miss Brisson,
Yes.
before we all get off, I want to say something.
Okay.
For my friends online.
Yeah,
So whenever you're done, just let me know so I can say it.
I will. And we have an exit ticket, so you guys are not going to be able to get off yet anyway. All right, we're going to finish this page. You guys at home, at school, we're on paragraph 10. I'm sorry, we're on paragraph 11. His wife was just about to open her mouth to agree when Molly spoke first. Hello, she said. Molly's face was smudged with a not insignificant amount of dirt from gardening. Not insignificant just means a lot. So she had a lot of dirt on her face. Yeah, just write a lot. Mr. de Tocqueville's shriek pierced the afternoon. What is happening? What is it? He stammered, which means stuttered. His wife blinked. I think it's a little boy. Oh no, is Molly a boy? No, she's girl. Molly gasped. I am not a little boy, she said forcefully. I am Molly, and I am a girl, and I live next door. She put on her most winning smile. May I please play in your pond? We're going to keep on reading. We've got one more paragraph.
Yes.
Next page. Mrs. de Tocqueville fixed Molly with a stern gaze. A stern gaze is a strong look. I need everybody to give me a stern gaze. Sometimes when you're in trouble, you get a stern gaze from your parents or your teacher. Everybody at home, give me a stern gaze. Good. You've got those strong eyes. Justin, you've got a good stern gaze. I love it. No, she sniffed. You may not. We have not come here to be pestered by scruffy girls. We have come here for peace and quiet. Molly stared at her in stony silence. I think she was really caught off guard, and now she's in silence. Why are you still here? Mrs. de Tocqueville demanded. Off with you, or I shall be speaking to your parents. Ooh, and that is actually where we're going to stop right now. We're going to read the rest tomorrow. For your exit ticket, I want, so this last part where Mrs. de Tocqueville is talking and says, why are you still here? Off with you, or I shall be speaking to your parents. That's your evidence that I'm giving you. I want you to write on your sticky or in the chat privately, give me an inference about Mrs. de Tocqueville. You're going to do it on a sticky. Yeah, which I have if you need stickies. All right, my friends, a one-word character trait that you are inferring or figuring out about Mrs. de Tocqueville based on this evidence right here. And I have a whole pack of stickies for you, Liliana, that I'll give you in a little bit, okay? Based on this evidence right here. Why are you still here? She demanded. Off with you. So give me an inference.